Good morning, everyone. We're going to wait a few minutes and let everybody get admitted, and then we'll start.
I'll go ahead and drop the slide presentation deck in the chat, and we'll drop it again later during the presentation as well.
And we'll go ahead and get started this morning. Hope everyone's had a great Monday morning so far, and welcome to the October Certification and Credentialing Call. Today, we'll be covering the following topics: opening remarks and call norms, processing by the numbers, background credentialing updates, educator development updates, LEC updates, certification reminders, and of course, our resource section. For this call and all educator talent workforce development calls moving forward, we'll be updating how questions and answers are managed through the chat. Questions in the chat will be routed directly to a designated member on the team. You can see where it says send questions here. And then the designated member of the team responsible for the work will answer the question. At the conclusion of the call or presentation, we will review each question and provide a response. As you can see, we processed approximately 2,600 applications during the month of September. While we typically provide the average number of business days it takes to process a case, we are still working with our developers to create a report that will capture these metrics. We are hopeful that this will be available prior to the November monthly call. Since January 1st, approximately 18,200 credentials were cleared by the educator background credentialing team. We cleared 2,049 educators in the month of September alone. Clear credential designations are issued when a person has been fingerprinted for Louisiana certification under our service code and has no disqualifying convictions that appear on the criminal background check. And with that, I'll turn over to Rachel Norman to discuss certification policy updates.
Thank you so much, Amanda. So the first update that we had actually was brought to, you can advance the slide, was brought to Bessie last week. And this was a change to educational diagnostician. So the change that was brought to Bessie actually removed the clause in the properly certified area of. And so what this change did was it acknowledged professional experience and provided expanded opportunities for educational diagnostician certification endorsement. So prior to an educator looking to add this endorsement to his or her certificate, had to teach for 1 year in a specific special ed area. So for example, if someone was previously certified or already certified in mild, moderate 1 to 5, then he or she, to add educational diagnostician, had to teach for 1 year in mild, moderate. So we would not be able to, let's say, use experience teaching in early interventionist or mild, moderate 6 to 12. So again, what this change did was it removed in the properly certified area of, but the educator will still need to have at least 1 year of teaching special education. This is currently out for notice of intent. And as always, our office will communicate once this has been adopted rule, which will likely be at the beginning of 2026. So as always, we'll use this platform to communicate that out and then also let y'all know once the self-evaluations have been updated on teachlouisiana.net. So the next is also something that was brought to Bessie last week. So previously we had about 4 different TPEs, or what we consider third-party entities. So two more TPEs have applied and were accepted at at last week's Bessie meeting, the first being Northwestern State University's College of Education, and then K-12 Learning Academy, which many of y'all probably know as Stride Incorporated. So those two were approved and adopted. And again, just like with the educational diagnostician changes, once these are officially off of notice of intent, we will communicate those out. So the next one is just an update again to educational leader. This is something that we had communicated the last monthly call, but just wanted to give you all an update that in August, this proposed policy was, or this update to the section educational leader policy was sent and adopted by Bessie. So prior to this update, any individual holding an ancillary would not be eligible for educational leader without having to enroll in and complete a teacher preparation program. But what this ancillary update provided was it expanded the administrative pipeline to now allow any individual holding an ancillary teaching certificate. Of course, this is with the caveat, this is not for ancillary early childhood, but any ancillary teaching certificate will now be able to apply for educational leader certification without having to either go through a teacher prep program or appeal to the Teacher Certification Appeals Council. Sorry, looks like someone muted me. So this is a cool update that we are excited to share on behalf of Educational Testing Services. So beginning October 1st, Praxis now offers free retakes for any test taker that has completed 3 attempts on the same Praxis test. So to be eligible, the educator has to have meet these 4 criteria. They had to have their first test attempt on or after October 1st. They have to have 3 or more registrations for this same test title. The educator does have to have reported scores on each of those attempts. And the educator does have to be within 5 years of the date of his or her 3rd attempt scores reported to that entity. So again, this is something that Praxis is really excited and has wanted us to announce for quite some time, but we had to keep kind of this secret until it was officially announced again, October 1st. And so if you have any details, you can always email education or contact Educational Testing Services. We did put some links. We also did put a flyer, which can be linked there, as well as that same flyer is on teachlouisiana.net. That again just has a little bit more information on this. Again, just to remind everybody, this is not the Department of Education. This is through Educational Testing Services. So if you do have any questions whatsoever, while you can always email me, we will simply just direct you back to ETS. So we would certainly encourage you to go there first. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Paula Bell, the Director of Educator Background Credentialing.
Thank you, Rachel. One of the most frequent questions my team gets is, what is the status of my fingerprinting for certification? I just wanted to remind you that there are multiple ways to check the status of a person's fingerprints for certification. First thing is have the applicant check their own fingerprinting status on Identigo's website. I've linked the direct link for status check here on this slide. The second thing they can do is check teachlouisiana.net to verify that the certification record has been updated with the clear credential notation. If the fingerprinting has been completed under our service code, we've received it, it should show there as well. And thirdly, if when the applicant logs into LEC and clicks Add New Application, the full menu of certification applications will appear, well, then that means they've received the CBC and the person is cleared. As an employer or program provider, you will be able to send them applications other than just that fingerprint clearance app if they've been cleared. If it's been at least 3 weeks since fingerprinting and no clear credential appears, go ahead and email us at educatorclearance@la.gov with the fingerprinting receipt so we can investigate. Please remind applicants to check their emails first in the event that their fingerprints were rejected and they need to go schedule printing again. Remember that using the clear credential for the criminal background check while hiring is allowable in state law, and it's specifically in Louisiana Revised Statute 1715 Part B. Check teachlouisiana.net for a person's clear credential, just like you would their certification. Doing so for your certificated employees reduces the number of criminal background checks that would be needed, and it would essentially eliminate the need for the CBC for employment. Our guidance has been that while implementing this 2025 CBC for certification law, public school systems should decide if they want to rely on our certification, specifically the clear credential, or not. That would be a school system decision that should be carefully considered with your legal counsel. If you need additional guidance on this, resources, and specific laws, you can email us at educatorclearance@la.gov, and I can share those applicable laws and that information for you and your board, or you and your leadership to consider. And it would be things such as convictions versus arrests and other resources that I could share to help you make that decision. Persons with prohibited convictions, those listed in 15587.1C, or those persons whose name is recorded on the DCFS Central Registry as a person who has a substantiated complaint of child abuse or neglect, cannot be hired by a local public school board or a non-public school system. School systems may request access to the state central registry clearance through the child abuse and neglect clearance system CANS. There's no fee to access the state central registry through CANS for employing school systems. If you need help requesting access, refer to the linked documents on this slide. One is for our public school systems and one is for our non-public school systems. For help with access questions, please contact your local security coordinator. The Certification and Background Credentialing Office has no authority or administrative control over CANS and would not be able to assist you with that access. So go ahead and contact your local security coordinator. And if your local security coordinator needs help in granting access, then they would need to send an email to systemsupport@la.gov so that our Office of Technology Services can help authenticate their accounts for CANS. If you need help with using the actual CANS system, DCFS has provided a user guide. It too is linked here on this slide. And if you would like to reach out to them directly, you can send your questions to dcfs.childabuseneglectclearances@la.gov, or they've provided a phone number, 225-219-3461. Now let's hear from the Deputy Director of Certification, Ms. Lana Hutchinson, for our LEC updates.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Just a reminder, we've kind of shortened our information about access requirements because we hope at this point you have already gotten yourself access to the Louisiana Educator Portal and the certification features to sign and review those as HR preparation providers. If you have not, then you can always reach out to the Teacher Certification Help Center for more information on how to request those permissions. Also, as a reminder, individuals that are granted those HR or preparation provider permissions must be included in the authorized signatures that are on file with our office. You may have some folks who had permissions for a minute and then those permissions were removed, as we do audit the permissions list regularly and remove anyone who is not included on an authorized signature form that our office has on file. Anyone that's reviewing and completing the HR or preparation provider sections on an application, a digital signature is attached when they complete those sections. So we do need to make sure they are all authorized and included on the signatures we have on file. And you can also send requests to the Teacher Certification Help Center if you believe you need to update your authorized signatures for your district or your program. Applicants may have some difficulty if they are not already in the Louisiana Educator Portal for evaluation processes. Anybody who uses LEP for evaluation shouldn't need to do anything else. They should have access to the Louisiana Educator Portal, and the certification features are available there. If they are not, then they will need a MILA account first, and then they will very likely need to validate their Social Security number. The Social Security number is the key piece of identifying information that our office uses for all certification-related features. That Social Security number needs to be entered and validated so that the Louisiana Educator Portal can read our certification database, verify if they have a clear credential, and let them move forward through the application process. New hires or other applicants that are not reported as employed for 25-26 yet, they're not already in your rosters or other data reporting, they may also need to validate their Social Security number. We have a knowledge article that's titled Logging into the Louisiana Educator Portal for Individual Applicants that is linked there, that provides step-by-step instructions for the educators for both creating the account, validating their Social Security number, and other common questions that we get about creating login for those educators that are not already set up in the Louisiana Educator Portal. And then on the Louisiana Educator Portal homepage, there is information for login support contacts. The certification office can't help with login very much. We can only provide some general guidance similar to what's in the logging into the Louisiana Educator Portal article. So we encourage you to use those resources that are linked on the Louisiana Educator Portal homepage to contact the correct people for technical support. Now, we have been, based on the questions we're receiving, we have had some misconceptions that we've identified. First and foremost, current employment is not required for an educator to access the Louisiana Educator Portal and start an application. We hear that a lot from folks, maybe they're new hires or they're interviewing for a position. They do not have to be hired before they can access the Louisiana Educator Portal. They are also not required to be reported in your 25-26 data records yet. They can still start applications even before all that information has been updated, though they will need to, in both cases, whether they're not employed at all or newly employed and not yet in your data records, they would need to validate their Social Security number in order to have access to the applications. Applicants that have an existing account should not, for any reason, ever create a new account. Individuals can only have one educator profile. If they've moved from another district and no longer have access to that email address, if they created their own account and then forgot what their password was, and so they think that they need to create another account, trying to create two accounts actually creates a whole lot of technical issues on the back end that causes additional delays in getting them fully connected and back into the system. So we very much encourage you, if you are hearing from your educators, well, I had an account for whatever reason, I can't get logged into it, so I'm going to just create another one. Please, 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 we ask your partnership to stop them. Don't let them do that. They'll need to contact those support contacts for assistance in getting the account updated, whether it's retrieving their password, changing their email to one they have access to, or otherwise updating those accounts so they can log back into the existing educator profile. Except in a very few places, we're getting some questions about, is this still required or is that still required for certain types of applications? And except in very, very few places where we've actually added a couple of extra documents that we need, like the mentor's credential with the PL and resident applications, certification requirements have not changed. The Louisiana Educator Portal application process only changes the method by which you provide that information to us. So all the supporting documents that you would include with the PDF applications previously are still required with the Louisiana Educator Portal applications. There are some places where we've tried to ask questions with yes or no answers. So if we already have documentation of, say, a degree, and if you say, yep, that my degree is already on file, then it doesn't ask for those transcripts. But if ever you feel like there's a piece of information you haven't uploaded that needs to be there, we'd encourage you to kind of pause and read back through the questions and make sure everything has been answered accurately, because the system will prompt you for the required documents needed based on the answers that you provide on those questions. If an applicant has failed to provide documentation that's necessary, we would also encourage you not to sign the authority sections, the HR or the provider sections, until all those corrections have been made. Once all sections have been signed, the applicant can submit it. And we are seeing some incomplete applications where HR or providers will follow up and say, well, I knew they hadn't uploaded that, and I told her they needed to, but I guess they didn't do that before they submitted the application. So we encourage you to have, if you're supporting your applicants, your candidates, and your educators, to make sure they have everything correct before you sign your section, and that'll prevent them from submitting it incomplete. And any requests that previously required submission by the employing school system or the preparation provider is going to still require signature and verification from those same authorities. So those should be being routed to you based on some questions that the educators ask or the application type selected. Some of the most common questions that we're still receiving are related to login and getting started. We are finding the feedback that we're hearing from a lot of folks is that once you finally get in, then the application process runs fairly smoothly. And the common reasons people have trouble logging in, the first question that we get a lot of is, why don't I have Start New certification application? And that almost always means they haven't validated their social security number. The system does not allow access to the applications at all until they've entered and validated their social security number, and then the system will check for a clear credential. Similarly, we are hearing, particularly from preparation providers, but also from some HR, that they're unable to send anything but the fingerprint packet. They try to send an application start request. They know the person has a clear credential because they've checked teachlouisiana.net, but still are only able to send them the fingerprint required packet. And that almost always is also because they have not entered and validated their social security number. Once the social security number is entered, then the system can verify they have that clear credential, and you will be able to send other application packets to them. For HR and preparation providers, the most common kind of access related question we're hearing is about requesting permissions. We're hearing from several folks that they're trying to request the permissions, but when they get to the role selection, that whole list is blank. It doesn't show any options to select. And again, almost every time, the issue there is that individual does not have a staff ID. Our non-public and our preparation providers do need to manually request a staff ID. Most of our public school and public charter, if your data administrators have uploaded your 25-26 information, most of you will already have a staff ID. But it is possible. We have seen some instances where traditional public or public charter personnel that are working in the central office aren't in those data records, don't have their staff ID, in which case one can be requested manually, as our non-publics or preparation providers would. Now, I mentioned that on the home page of the Louisiana Educator Portal, there are support contacts. And I'm just kind of summarizing that information for you here. When asking about technical support issues, login issues, those sorts of things, K-12 public school, traditional public and public charter, should contact first their security coordinator or data administrator. The access to the Louisiana Educator Portal is tied pretty tightly to the data systems information found in eScholar and EdLink 360. And that information all kind of needs to align. Their social security number needs to be correct in eScholar for the Louisiana Educator Portal to link it up. The contact emails, a lot of that information is syncing to make sure we have one set of records for each one person. And so the first place to start is with the security coordinator or data administrators to check some of that information in your local records. Then if that's unresolvable, your LEA, the people serving in those roles, they should be familiar with data system support, and they can reach out to data system support to assist with working through whatever's causing the login issues. Those not employed in K-12 traditional public or public charter schools can reach out to data system support directly, since you don't have a security coordinator or data administrator who can assist. Now, questions about the certification requirements, certification applications, social security number validation, those sorts of questions, submit those through the Teacher Certification Help Center. Our office, our area of expertise is the certification requirements, the applications themselves, and data systems is the support contact for those technical login issues. One of the changes with the Louisiana Educator Portal and the LEC system is that we have lots of increased controls to help prevent incomplete or incorrect applications, as long as folks are reading the questions carefully and answering those questions truthfully. The system will walk you through and prompt for everything that we need in order to process that certification request. But technologically, canceling applications is very, very difficult. And then being able to pull out any fees paid and reuse those for a resubmission is also very, very difficult. And it's something our office can only grant on a case-by-case basis. We do encourage everyone to review their applications carefully before making that final payment and submitting the application. Be sure you're double checking that everything that's needed is included there. Along a similar note, we will also no longer be closing applications without processing. Under our legacy system, we would often send emails and say, you forgot to attach the IDs or you typed your social security number wrong. A lot of the technical improvements with the LEC system will control for those things. So it's not impossible, but more difficult to forget to attach your IDs. In this case, they would have to have uploaded the wrong thing. But at least they've provided something there. Their social security number can never be incorrect on the application, since that's pulled from the validated social security number. Payment receipts, it cannot be submitted without attaching some sort of payment to the application. So a lot of those common reasons we would previously return an application without processing it have been minimized, if not eliminated. And so we will no longer be providing, this has been closed without processing, please correct and resubmit. All applications will be processed with feedback provided through the messaging system that's built into LEC, as well as posted on teachlouisiana.net. We will be processing those based on the documentation provided to provide that formal feedback. And just as with previous system, if it's just one item that's missing, then we are still allowing 90 days at this time to submit those follow-ups. And if it's more than one item missing, or if the request cannot be granted, then we are providing formal feedback with next steps. And again, we encourage you, if you're supporting your educators, to be sure that you make sure everything's correct before you sign the HR provider sections. You can be that final stop to make sure all corrections are made before it gets submitted, because until you've signed your section, the applicant cannot submit it. They can't go make their payment. So if you work with them to get the corrections made before you sign your parts, then you can make sure that you can kind of assist with them anyway, making sure that they are not denied unnecessarily. Now, we have been thinking internally about trying to identify some places where we feel like applicants and HR offices and preparation providers could learn a little more about how the system works and try to spotlight different parts of the application process or particular application types during some of these calls each month. And for this month, we want to talk a little bit with you about the experience verification form. The experience verification form is very, very many of our applications require that form, and it's a critical piece of documentation to assess whether or not individuals meet the requirements for certification. And we're seeing with the new applications in the portal, a lot of incomplete experience verification forms, which is causing an increase in unnecessary denials or in folks not being able to advance to the highest possible certificate, and maybe only being granted a renewal instead of getting their higher level of certification. Because it's critical that we have the full details of the experience verified and verified accurately. For most requests, we need about the 5 most recent years, although there are times when we would need more depending on what request is being made. Louisiana school systems can verify all in-state experience, not just the experience with your individual school, and we encourage you to be sure that at least the 5 most recent years are fully verified. If there's been any change in role, then those roles need to be delineated on the experience verification form. Many requests are going to require a specific type of experience. So specifically teaching, or specifically teaching in a certain area, or serving as a leader. And so we encourage you to make sure if they served for 2 years as a teacher and 2 years as a instructional coach, that those years be separated and delineated for which dates they were serving in which role. If they've recently been hired or recently moved into a new position, that needs to be specified on the experience verification form as well. With lots of our requests, things like employment verification, educational leader, the individual is required to be employed in a specific type of role in order for that certificate to be issued or renewed. And so that new role needs to be listed on the experience verification form. Out-of-state experience should not be added to the in-state experience verification form and should be verified with the out-of-state experience verification attestation by the out-of-state employing authority, which is then uploaded with the application. So when filling out the experience verification form, the applicants, you may remember we did some surveys on this monthly call at several different presentation meetings for other groups and organizations to find information during the development about how our HR folks would prefer for this form to operate and who can put information on it. And we got very, very split responses. And we're still getting very, very split responses. We have some HR offices that feel very, very strongly that the educator should not be allowed to touch this form. And we have others that feel like we should require the educator to fill this form out, not the HR office. Now, policy requires that the experience be verified by the employing school system. So we can't make it entirely the responsibility of the educator. And so what we've done is we've left that form open so the educator can add information to this form, but only authorized HR representatives can sign it and mark it as complete. So we ask that you, as the verifying authority, review the information if information has been provided there and make sure that it's accurate, including editing or removing any entries that you cannot confirm, editing and removing duplicate entries or out-of-state experience, things that should not be included on that form. And you're encouraged to set your own policies around whether or not you require your applicants to enter information here, or whether or not you prefer for them to leave it alone so that you only enter the information you can verify. Be sure you're communicating those policies to your educators, and you are certainly welcome to return or contact an educator and tell them you're not going to sign the experience form if they haven't followed those policies. And then again, don't include your signature until the experience form includes all the information that you can verify. There is an option available to import records from the employment reporting data. And we encourage you to use this feature with caution. A lot of the kind of incomplete and inaccurate information that we're seeing on experience verification right now appears to have been imported from the data systems. The information that's in EdLink 360 is only as good as the people that were maintaining it throughout the years. Some systems have been consistently good. Some systems have been less so. It's often a hodgepodge of sometimes good, sometimes bad information. If you choose to import, then that information needs to be fully completed and needs to be cleaned up so that our office can identify what experience has actually been verified by your office. In some cases, it's really, really helpful to import. It imports nice, clean data. You just get a few records. But in other cases, I'm sure you've all seen at this point, some that are just kind of a mess. So that's why we definitely include caution. But if you do choose to use the import, then each record has to be completed. When you import, it doesn't include their title, the subject and grade level, the method of evaluation. Sometimes the method of evaluation will actually pull through a connection with the evaluation system. But that title, that subject and grades is really important to a lot of certification requests. When we get an experience verification form that just has the imported information and does not indicate what role they were serving in, this is the primary thing that's been causing unnecessary denials, because many, many requests require that we specifically verify were they serving as a teacher, were they serving as a leader, were they serving as a librarian or a counselor, were they teaching gifted or special education, or whatever other details are necessary depending on the request. That title, subject, and grade information is very, very important for certification processing. And we're receiving a lot of applications where there was clearly just imported and then the additional information was not provided. So we've been unable to issue those certification requests. But at the end of the day, you are the verifying authority, and only information that you can verify should be included on that form. If you choose to import, but you don't know if their years in a previous district or wherever else are accurate during the hiring process, you maybe didn't verify all the way back to 1998, then those years that you cannot verify should be removed before signing that form. Now, we do have some resources available, and many of them are posted on teachlouisiana.net, including user guides specific to each role. There are recorded training sessions that are available when you log into an authorized teachlouisiana.net account. There are also listings of the applications that are available in LEC. We did change the names of some of the applications, and so there's an alphabetical listing as well as a crosswalk that lists all the previous PDF applications and then which LEC applications to use where you would have previously used the specific PDF. And then also, again, the logging into the Louisiana Educator Portal for Individual Applicants article can be very helpful for the individuals creating accounts. And then just a quick update. Everybody probably already knows this, but we did retire Teach Louisiana or Teach LA Live. After business hours on August 11th, we turned off the ability to submit through that portal. And on September 30th, the Teach LA Live website was retired and is now no longer accessible. We did retain all the history of the Teach LA Live submissions. That's currently only accessible to the certification and credentialing teams. So if you need information from a previous application, you're always welcome to send a request through the Teacher Certification Help Center. And we'll do our best to locate that and provide what information that we can from that application. And we are still working with the technology team to see if we can technologically make some of that history available to the individuals that previously submitted that information. And with that, I will turn it over to Amanda Slaughter, who's the Chief of Staff of the Educator Talent Workforce Development, for some educator development updates.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. I'm filling in for Mr. Britt Colin today as he's doing a site visit. The mentor and resident data collection, the reporting period is October 7th through October 29th. Systems are asked to have all information reported by 5 p.m. on October 29th, as the mentor teaching funding snapshot will be taken on October 30th. It's strongly recommended that systems complete reporting and EdLink early and reach out to our team to review the data to ensure accuracy. If you would like for our team to review your data once it's been completed, please email mentor and content leaders at la.gov. Our team will be sharing a list of those mentor and residents that meet eligibility criteria criteria to receive stipends in December. Please reach out if y'all have any additional questions. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Rachel Norman to conclude the call and begin reading through those questions and answers.
Thank you so much, Amanda. As always, we do like to end our call before we do questions and answers with the important dates. So this week, actually on Thursday, we do have the Teacher Certification Appeals Council. Next Wednesday is the Preparation Provider Call, which I know many of you who also have Grow Your Owns will be on that call. November 7th is the System Leader Monthly Call, and then November 11th is Veterans Day, and so the state offices will be closed. And again, always ending it with supports and resources. These are very helpful links that both we and the certification office use commonly every single day, and links that we are constantly communicating out to the field. The three at the bottom, the certification bulletin 746 is a very great resource to use because it provides an overview of all things certification. Of course, teachlouisiana.net. We have gotten a lot of questions that I do believe that people probably confuse Teach LA Live with teachlouisiana.net. Teach LA Live, of course, was the legacy system that y'all used to and we used to operate out of. That is the system that has retired, but teachlouisiana.net is and has been for a really long time around and will continue to be a repository of all things certification, including requirements, including how to access all of our bulletins. And of course, lastly, the Louisiana Educator Portal, which is the new portal that we are working out of. And so with that, certification reminders. This is just a reminder of all of the calls throughout through the summer of 2026. And so our next call will be November 17th at 10:30. And so for real with that, I will turn it over and I will go through and start reading some of the questions. Is LDOE considering adopting the Praxis Bridge program? So no, at this time, the Department of Education will not be adopting the bridge. If and when there is ever a place that it will be adopted by the Department of Education, again, we will use this platform to communicate that out to you all, not just through this platform, but we will likely plaster it everywhere on our website and newsletters and all communication streams moving forward. If the educator is, needing some additional resources to help pass that test, we would certainly encourage them to tap into the free resources that ETS offers on their website. And then this candidate hopefully could be a perfect candidate for that free after 3. And so again, if he or she did meet those 4 criteria, we would strongly encourage them to reach out to ETS because that free after 3 may be a perfect solution for them. Next question, which application do I need to do if a new principal needs an EDL1? They have already received the eligibility letter. So there is actually a packet in LEP called the employment verification. It's its own application. It will simply ask for the same stuff that the previous portal did. So the educator will need to provide his or her professional conduct form, of course, the IDs, meaning the state ID and the social security card, and then of course, verification of employee role. Next question, I caught the end of the information for EDL eligibility for folks with ancillaries. They still have to have the bachelor's and master's. Yes, so the actual requirements for any of the educational leader pathways, the criteria for those pathways did not change. The only thing that changed is now, in addition to an educator holding or being eligible hold a level 2 or type B, that portion will now include holding that ancillary teaching certificate. So if it still required a graduate degree, or if it still required completion of a boot camp, any of the pathways, the actual criteria of that did not change. I have some residents that have 2 placements throughout their residency year. How can I make this noted on their residency certificate through LEC? And how will I send notification to 2 HR departments when applying for their initial certification? That's a great question. The text field indicating placement location, just as with the previous PDF application, will still allow for up to 2 on that LEP application. So the application can only be routed to one HR office, and it should go to the first HR. So if they're doing a fall, spring, or spring, fall, you would want to route it to that wherever they're going first. The mentor or mentor's credentials for the second location will be verified after the residency with initial certification. Next question, if the PL is approved and applied for at the time after the deadline for the fall funding, should we start the mentoring process in the spring or start immediately? Yes, if this is a PL for the fall spring, the mentoring should have begun as soon as the educator was placed in the classroom as that teacher of record. Next question, can evaluations that are entered in LEP after the educator certificate has expired be used to achieve the 3 evaluations to renew or request a higher certificate? Yes, just as with the previous systems, any effective evaluation either in CIS, which was the legacy system, or with LES, which is the current system, any 3 effective evaluations, it can be a mix of the 2, or it could be fully in CIS or fully in LES, that can be used to advance to a level 2 or 3, depending, of course, they also have the 3 or 5 years of teaching experience. Next question, is CANS required for all new hires? Yes, the employing school system is required to check CANS for any employer hired on or after August 1st of 2025. Next question, good morning, I work for Discovery Schools. My LEC access was taken away, and I currently do not have access to any educator certification applications. We are actually in a testing solution with our Office of Technology Services to control for this. And so if you can submit a question through our teacher certification help portal about individual permissions and access, we can, myself or Lana or Paula will pull those questions and get back to you as quickly as possible. Next question, where can the certification requirements be found? All certification requirements, including requirements for initial certification and add-on requirements, can be found both on teachlouisiana.net as well as Bulletin 746. When submitting PL1 applications, where does it ask for Praxis scores, and who does it ask for scores, or which section does it ask, the applicant or the provider? Scores are requested from the provider. There is a question asking if scores are on file with the certification office. If you answer yes, it does not ask for a score report, but as always, if you do select no, then it will prompt you to upload that official score report. Will additional required forms such as the TAP verification be added into the digital application instead of districts having to upload the forms? The TAT exam verification form is on the list for future developments. We meet with our OTS developers every single day, sometimes twice a day. And any ask from the field, we certainly engage with them and ask them. And so that is something that we have asked for based on your feedback, and hopefully it will be something that in a future iteration can be built in. For the free after 3 for Praxis, will that include the SLLA exam? So it is our understanding that is any exam administered through Educational Testing Services. ETS did not provide us any sort of comprehensive list that said that they could or couldn't. So we're assuming that that means any test administered by ETS through Praxis. But we would certainly encourage you to reach out directly to ETS for confirmation. For the LEC portal, I have students who are working on a PL renewal. Since the student was required to receive additional hours per week during the renewal phase, the current school system signed off, and it appears that the student should have received a signature from her current school system. That's certainly a question that would probably be better suited to either send to the portal or schedule office hours so we can take a direct look at what's going on with that case, and we can provide more one-on-one support for you. We're used to be able to access Praxis data from the certification portal. Will we now have access to that portal? The ETS portal only gives me scores for those who report. Yeah, so again, we are working with our developers to have this placed back onto your section of LEP. But in the meantime, you can use your authenticated username and password or your credentials to sign onto teachlouisiana.net. When you sign on, there will be a Praxis search link to the right-hand side of your screen. You can click on that and either type in the educator's first or last name, or because you do have the authenticated account, you can actually search by educator's SSN, which is likely the one that we would encourage you to do because a social is unique to that educator. Whereas if you type in a first and last name, it is possible that there are people with duplicative names. We have a student that received a notification that their R certificate will be deleted. So again, Ms. Murdoch, we would recommend that you and Ms. Sherrard from the Southern Lab School contact our office via the teacher certification help portal or schedule office hours so we can provide one-on-one support to both or each one of you. So if the HR makes a mistake, the candidate has to pay the fee to resubmit again. So just as with our previous system, if there is more than one item missing or an educator is missing a requirement, yes, the application, the educator will be required to reapply with a new application and a new fee will be required. That is not something that is unique to LEP. That is something that was still in our previous system and has carried over into our new system. Can we have multiple years on a single entry line? This is a question in regards to the experience verification form. Yes, if the educator was serving at the same school, in the same district, and in the same role, absolutely, you can group those together. But just as Lana, mentioned with the experience verification form, if there was any sort of change, meaning that if an educator was teaching, maybe he or she was teaching at the same school in the same district, but in a different role, you would not be able to group those together because that could potentially cause an educator to be denied. So we would just caution you to absolutely, again, if it's identical, absolutely, you can group those together. If not, certainly just delineate those on a different line. When will providers be able to get a list of approved residents and mentors? As Ms. Slaughter mentioned, Mr. Britt Colin, who normally would be on this call and could answer that question, is actually out on a site visit this morning, as with the rest of his team. And so if you reach out directly to mentor and content leaders at la.gov, and we can drop that direct email in the chat, they'll be able to get back with you as quickly as they can. Okay, so let's see. Can the list of applications on the HR side be listed in alphabetical order? Again, certainly we can bring that request to our developers and we can see what they say. I don't see where that would be a problem, but that's something that we can't necessarily control, but certainly we can bring that to the developers. I'm going to take a look at my chat because it was definitely blowing up while I was answering questions. So just give me a quick minute. Okay, if a teacher's ancillary mentor certificate is expiring, does he or she simply apply for renewal with the same mentor application? So the first thing, Dr. Wilson, that I would recommend is many years ago, we did a big data pool, and anybody that held the ancillary certificate at one point, it was actually transitioned over to an endorsement associated with that educator's teaching certificate. And so we get questions a couple times a week saying, do I need to renew that ancillary certificate? And the question the question should be, or the answer I should say, would be the first thing that you would want to do is make sure that they don't have it as an endorsement. If they do, then you can just disregard that ancillary certificate. It was never really meant to be a standalone certificate and only was for a brief moment in time. So now if an educator does not meet requirements or he or she is working toward, they get that provisional. So if you're talking about the provisional ancillary mentor, that is a 2-year non-renewable certificate. But if you're simply talking about the ancillary, the first thing we would recommend that you do is make sure that they don't have it on their certificate. If they do, then as long as their certificate is valid, you will not need to worry about that standalone ancillary. For the ancillary renewal for school counselor prior to June 30th of 2017, will the counselors have to provide course numbers on the checklist? I'm not really sure, Miss Sharon, what, if you're still on, can you come off of and mute? Because if they were issued the ancillary prior to, then the renewal requirements will be the same. If they haven't been issued the certificate and you're simply asking if they're applying for the initial, then yes, they'll have to when they do the self-evaluation.
So it's a renewal and she's trying to do the self-evaluation, but it's requiring course codes. And she graduated like, I don't know, 18 or 20 years ago. So she's not sure that she has those, but it won't let her continue without uploading that checklist with all of her course codes. So I'm not sure. It's a renewal. It's not an initial.
Okay, so the renewal doesn't require courses. The renewal requires effective evaluations pursuant to Bulletin 130.
She's
So what
probably using the wrong application. She should not be using the initial ancillary school counselor or librarian application. She should be using the ancillary teaching renewal application to renew the school counselor certificate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next question. This one may be for actually no. Can the CCCBC clearance take the place of the CANS clearance for Head Start staff? I believe the answer is no, but I'm going to refer to Ms. Bell.
Yes, the CCCBC, my understanding is when they go through that process, that the Department of Education will look into CANS, the Early Childhood Office does, but that does not remove the employer's responsibility to run a CANS check for all employees. And this includes, this is all contracted employees, teachers, janitors. This is everyone that you've hired on or after August 1st. You as the employer will have to do that, but the CCCBC process does not take the place of it.
All right, thank you. Hopefully that answered your question. And then the last one, if a teacher on the list for the Teacher Certification Appeals Council cannot attend, do they contact me to have me, as in Rachel, have to have the HR director speak? Yes, absolutely. If you're referring to Mr. Matthew Alquin, he actually did contact me, so you're good to go. But, and I mean, if anybody from HR is needing to come to the Teacher Certification Appeals Council and is needing to speak in executive session on behalf of his or her appellant, then yes, the appellant will need to either contact me directly and inform me that they will not attend and are giving you the legal right, if you will, to speak in executive session, or they can put it on official letterhead or some form of letter. And you can, when you come to the appeals council on Thursday, you can present that letter and we will take a look at it, and that should allow you to speak in executive session. And then the very last question, will teachers who have mentors on their mentor teacher certification on their certificates due to leads or LER training, will that expire? No. As long as, again, that endorsement is on the certification, then that certificate is valid as long as that teaching certificate is valid. And then I'll take one more look into the chat. Can you make visible the type of application sent in the LEX system in the requested actions section? For example, I can see that I have sent an app to an educator, but can't tell which app I have sent unless I click on the details section and have made a comment in the comment section. So just like with any other request, absolutely, we will bring this to our developers. For now, the name of the application sent does show on the request, and the request details in the right column, even if you didn't comment. Okay, so it looks like that's all the questions that we have. If any other hosts have any other questions in their chat, can you please come off of a mute, just because we just want to make sure that everybody who took an opportunity to ask a question to our office does get an answer. Okay, so we actually have perfect timing. We only have 1 minute left. So again, thank you so much for attending today's call. As always, if you have certification questions, please reach out directly to our teacher certification help portal. As Amanda mentioned at the very beginning of the slide, we are answering questions generally saying business day. And so again, we will get back with you as quickly as possible. Ms. Paula Bell did drop a direct link into the teacher certification help portal in the chat. If you have more of a case specific question and you would like to schedule office hours, again, certainly please do that. We do offer office hours every Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. in 15-minute slots. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing y'all next month.
Rachel,
Yes, ma'am.
I had put a question in the chat. It went to LDOE certification, but it's just a question about Thursday. The
Yes,
teacher,
ma'am.
like if somebody cannot make it and they want me to speak on their behalf, they have to contact you.
Either me or send a letter, but
Okay.
I did receive your appellant's information this morning.
Okay. All right. That was all the question was. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. All right, thank y'all so much.